Network.
It's a trap!
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?
This is the Team of Rivals podcast.
Everything you want to hear from the big sports to the big screen.
He's all by himself, fires into the end zone. Caught! Touchdown! No!
On into the windup in his first offering. Just a bit outside. He tried the corner and missed.
He doesn't like you. I don't like you either.
Time winding down. Mike over three. Yes! She is gone!
I don't believe what I just saw. Go crazy, folks! Go crazy!
You believe in miracles? Yes!
Come as far when ready.
What?
Good morning, Cubs and Cardinals fans. It's Saturday, June 22nd, and this is the Team of Rivals podcast. You can follow us on social media at Team of Rivals Pod for those of you who prefer to watch the show. We also live stream on Saturdays, just like today, on YouTube, Facebook, Rumble, and X. So hit the like and subscribe buttons and be sure notifications are on so that you know anytime we post new content. And you can also find more great podcast and blog content on the Fuel Sports Network. Somebody mark the date, Saturday, June 22nd. The unsurprising thing here is that Ron struggled with his technology. But the surprising thing this week is that Elliott was in the room before Ron. Had I not been running the room, I'm sure Elliott would have actually been the first one on. So it's a momentous day in Team of Rivals podcast history. And I would be remiss if I didn't properly introduce them. Joining me for this week's show, co-founder of TOR and number 151 in the 2023 edition of C70's Top Cards on Twitter, Ron Nuttall, and our permanent, occasional, and maybe bucking for permanent guest host, actually showed up on time, Elliott Dewey. Ron, I'm flabbergasted. But Elliott, I mean, you got to lay it out for us.
Soccer season's over, my friends.
There we go. Okay. Elliott had nothing better to do at 11 o'clock on a Saturday, so he jumped on with us and made his presence felt. Meanwhile, Ron, loving your backdrop there. It looks like a gorgeous day in Charlotte.
It's a nice day. As far as clarity, it's hot as hell, and I'm sitting up on an upper balcony with a ceiling fan that's not doing a whole hell of a lot. So I might melt during the course of this show if we don't keep it tight.
Well,
nothing works, Pete. Nothing works. Nothing works.
You heard the mandate, folks. We have to keep it tight.
We have to keep it tight. I'll die. I've got water. Hopefully it'll last me to the end.
All right. Well, we'll have this be a short show.
Well, no. I'm just kidding. Look, I'll live. I was out in it all day yesterday. And the thing is, like, literally nothing works here. I'm on my phone again and AirPods. This is probably the easiest way to do it. It just might be a change of pace for me. I just might do this from now on, even though the audio quality sucks on these things.
It's fine. We're good. Elliott, anything you would like to complain about?
All good here. I'm in air conditioning. Computer working fine. Camera set up nicely. I just had 700 options for audio.
Ron, you should have heard him when he logged on. It was like some of your finest performances. Pete, I can't hear you. Can you hear me? Hang on, Pete. Wait, and then when he finally connected. So I got these new great headphones and I had 7 different options in order to choose from for one headset. It's like, all right, well, if Ron's going to be late, Elliott's going to step in and take his place. All right, gents. So let's pick up where we left off the last time. We kind of teased it. My angry rant that I forgot to add in, and we were calling it a show anyway. Let's get rid of the defensive positioning cards. can we please, if you can't remember the defensive briefing on all the hitters on the other team, you don't get to go into your pocket and move. Like, isn't that what you have your coaches in the dugout for? I got to tell you, I get so tired of seeing these guys in between plays reaching into their pocket, looking, taking 1.5 steps to their right and 1 step back, and then they're ready to go. Ron, you look like you are locked and loaded on this one.
Not really. I've noticed it too, but it's not one of those things that's bothered me a whole lot. If they have pockets on their uniforms, I guess you can use it for more than just holding a batting glove or spider tack or whatever it is. I don't know. The defensive cards, whatever, doesn't bother me. But if baseball wants to take more thinking out of the game and just dumb it down, I guess it could just give guys, color by numbers, and here's where you play every batter. It doesn't matter to me. I don't care.
Yeah, I mean, that's why you have the coaches sitting there saying, go to your left or whatever. But they don't annoy me necessarily. It's just that some of the players put them in stupid spots on their uniform that annoys me, like underneath their hat. Like, that would annoy me. I mean, you got this plastic card that's sticking to your forehead. Just put it in your pocket. Or you could be like some of the catchers where they wear it on their wristband. They flip it up like they're a quarterback.
I mean, I'm waiting for a pitcher to do that. He'll reach into his pocket, or it'll be inside of his glove, right?
Honestly, I think I've seen it
out
a few times where they've stepped back on the mound, they've grabbed out of their pocket, looked at it, and threw it back into their pocket to kind of know, how do I pitch this guy? I'm like, that's why you have 7 mound visits. If you're pitching to a guy and you're not sure, the coach will come out and talk to you, or you communicate with your catcher. I mean, everything doesn't have to be electronic or, by the statistics. I think it takes away from the game a little bit too much. So.
Yeah, that actually dovetails with an article on The Athletic that I read this morning while I was eating breakfast by Jason Stark, I think it was, and Eno Saris, about, there goes Ron's video, and maybe his microphone too. Anyway, Eno Saris and Jason Stark were talking about, and I think it came out yesterday, about the complete lack of hitting in baseball so far this year. How all the numbers are down, slugs down.
It's been awful.
Yeah, and one of the things that they talked about is just how much better pitchers are right now. That's what the hitters attribute a lot to, is that with all the pitch labs and everything, more pitchers are throwing more pitches. Like the first one that they highlighted was Seth Lugo, that when he came up with the Mets, he had 5 pitches, and now he has 8 pitches. And the reason why so many guys now have so many more pitches is because of the pitch labs and everything. And so they're able to attack hitters in many different ways, rather than, as Christian Yelich, I can't believe I'm quoting him, said, if a guy had a pitch that sucked, he might not know why it sucked, and so he kept throwing it. But now, with the advent of all the numbers and everything, the pitching coach and the pitch lab works with them and either teaches him how to throw that sucky pitch better, or to just stop throwing it, right? Because now they know that it's not effective, and so they're not going to keep throwing it.
Right, because they're going to tell them, hey, you're shitty at this pitch because your spin rate on it isn't hitting it where it's need to. So let's adjust your grip on the baseball and hold it this way to get those extra rotations to make that pitch, better and more effective. And yeah, some of these guys are coming in and going to the pitch labs and getting every inch of them videotaped as they throw a pitch to figure out, hey, why can't I throw this cutter effectively like anybody else that I'm comped to? So.
Yeah. And I kind of wonder, like, it almost seems like, it kind of dovetails with exactly what has annoyed all of us, and Ron in particular, is the over-analysis that has happened in baseball, where we're so obsessed with numbers and everything, and it's gotten us away from the storytelling aspect of the game. We know what your expected WOBA is on, a 4-seam fastball up and away, that's 95 miles an hour or less, and thus we're going to position our fielders accordingly.
Yeah. And for batters, I mean, maybe for batters, instead of looking at all the statistics, they need to dumb it down a little bit more to see the ball, hit the ball, man.
And
Enough with this launch angle, you know, bat speed, whatever. Maybe it's time for batters to get back to basics. Take the pitch and what they give you, and if you got to go oppo and just dump it into right or left field, freaking do that. Stop trying to hit it into, the next city over, because I feel like almost every single batter is swinging with as hard of a velocity as they can.
Okay. I certainly have an opinion about that, Pete. You're correct.
Go.
We've given the example, like, in, I don't know, probably a dozen walks of life, right? Where sometimes not having everything explained allows your brain to work on filling in the gaps or telling the story yourself. When it's explained for you, there's not that much thinking required on your end. And so I think things that are over-explained to me, I tend to disengage with. Take a franchise we all love, right? Like when they over-explain things or tell a backstory that's not needed, it just, I don't know, to me, it takes away from it. And the analysis and the numbers and break run, it's just uninteresting. It's flat out boring and uninteresting. And I don't know how many people actually love that stuff. I don't. I got to assume that baseball maybe researched this and said, this is what the fans want, or this is what Gen Z and millennials want to see. It's just not, it's not something we grew up with, like most things in baseball. Try to give them a fair shot, but I'm just like, I don't need to see the replay of the home run with a light trace on it to show what row of the bleachers it hit in and how fast it was going. And I don't care if it's an inch over that wall, it's a home run. If it's a mile past the wall, it's a home run. I don't need it to be broken down for me. I really love it when, even when I played and a guy hit a ball really hard, like, damn, he hit a piss missile right over my head. That was a hard hit. I don't need to have it torn down. I don't know. It happens that way a lot. Like when things are just, details are shared with me. I don't know. Somebody's told you a story and droned on and on, probably like I am right now. And you tend to, I'm the little dinghy that drift away from the big boat, man. As soon as you start talking to me too much, I'm gone. I'm just drifting off. And I feel that way with the sport.
Let me ask you guys something.
Yeah.
Ron, I assume that you did. Elliott, I'm going to guess you did. Did you guys watch the Rickwood game?
I couldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually couldn't, but everything that I read was universally positive. People loved the broadcast. And what I got from reading the reactions is it was more about storytelling than it was about the statistics.
Yes,
and there was, and I wish that I had seen it. I saw one and I wish I had favorited it. There was one comment on X where somebody said, this is how baseball should be broadcast. Tell stories. People who are into the statistics, they know where to find them, but get that stuff out of the game. It has no place in a broadcast. It's not what makes baseball, what made baseball America's pastime.
I probably saw a few comments. There was I don't know whether you read about this or not. So there was a half an inning that they broadcast in old format, right? It was like 4x3. And they did it in like that sepia. Right? Yeah. And it was cool for half an inning. I'm glad they didn't do it the entire game, but it was kind of cool for half an inning.
Yeah.
But during that half inning, the score wasn't up on screen. All this other stuff that can, be a distraction is not up there. It was kind of neat. But I saw a belly aching over that half inning that I heard from some fans out there. Like, just show the game, get this crap off. Like, are you kidding? Like,
they were showing the game.
Well, I don't know what these fans are bitching about because they got their phone grafted to their fucking palm, tweeting out every thought they possibly can think of during every game. Why are they bitching about the broadcast? Are you even paying attention to it? In between posting your hot take and then constantly refreshing it to see who liked it. You're not watching the fucking game anyway, guys. Bitching about it.
And if they want numbers, all they got to do is open up game day. You want to know where the location of that ball was, or Or
Well, I was just talking about the half inning, like just people screaming about the half
Right.
inning that they broadcast, you know, in a nostalgic way. That was kind of neat, being that they're at Rickwood, and you know, there was no behind the pitcher camera angle. It was like up, you know, behind the home plate, right?
Yeah. Like it would have been.
You know, I wouldn't want to watch an entire game like that, but for a half inning, it certainly didn't trigger me. So sorry to all the sensitive X people out there that didn't like that half inning. I feel really bad for you. But no, I watched almost the entire game. My wife did take over the TV, but I thought they did a great job, and I think you guys, I think you said it perfectly. It to me just highlights what's been missing, and that is the storytelling aspect, that romantic aspect of baseball. It's different than the other sports. You're not going to get constant action. You're not going to get heads smashing together. You know, you're not going to have the constant action of something like hockey either. So I get it. You know, all these sports have a little bit different appeal to them, and that's just what baseball had. It had a romantic side to it, and now it's just I don't want to say commoditized. That's not the right term, but it's just I don't know. Things are being having a spotlight put on them that I don't know that anybody's asking for, except I don't know, nerdy guys who like actually never played, and that's what they're into. Like, fine.
And
I like on MLB.TV, I will give it credit that you can change the broadcast, right? I think I've told you guys that before, and I think they need another option for these guys. That, hey, give us a broadcast that we care about. Like, I don't need to see all the extra shit, and give them something like a Peyton Manning version where people can just talk about metrics the entire broadcast. I mean, I don't know, just a thought. Trying to meet everybody halfway rather than slamming my door on the possibility that, hey, there is a large group out there that likes that stuff, and that's why they like the game, and I like the game for maybe different reasons. So I'm sure there's a way baseball can make it work for everybody without, you know, alienating the other.
Yeah, find a really good storytelling booth and put them on as an option, right? And you could have, I mean, come on, they already have multiple booths anyway. You could have 3 booths on a national broadcast, right? You have one that's kind of exactly how it is now. You've got another one that's all statistics and analytics, and then have another one that's basically the equivalent of Vin Scully, who's just narrating a story and who's dropping in anecdotes, whether or not they apply to what's happening on the field or not, and just see what kind of numbers you get for each of those. They don't
even have to hire broadcasters for the analytics side. Just let AI do it with a fake voice. They'll never know this.
Well, and
they'll still bitch about the announcer.
Of course.
That's why like Ron said, that's why I like the ability on MLB to choose my broadcast. If I want to listen to Pat and Ron on the radio, because your radio guys are more the guys that are going to tell the story versus your TV guys who are going to use the graphics and use the analytics because they have that ability to show that without getting too cumbersome with the viewer like you would on radio trying to explain that stuff. Plus, all the guys on the radio are typically old school. Which
one more thing about the Rickwood game, though, they really should do that every year. I thought that was really cool. Or find other venues like that that they can play a game like that every year. I thought that was pretty neat. I enjoyed it.
I have to think that they will, given the amount of money that they put into it. I don't know if you saw the time lapse video of the renovations that they did, but obviously the stadium that they played in was not what it was a year ago. You know, they completely renovated it. Yeah, the field is still there, but that's not what it looked like a year ago. So I would imagine that with the money that they sunk into that, I gotta think that they're planning to go back there. And based on the positive response that they got, I would imagine that they're probably going to look to restore some of the other stadiums.
Yeah, I think it'd be almost like a good major league project every year, you know, where, you know, let's revive the sport, the venues that the sport has been played, revive it all around the country, pick a different spot, pick another stadium that is, you know, an aging minor league stadium or something like that has been around a long time, or another Negro League stadium. I don't know how many there are still in existence, but so yeah, I think that would be pretty cool. I'd be all about that. Did you guys see the Reggie Jackson interview? Any clips on that?
I heard about it, and I hadn't watched it yet. I was trying to get to it and I didn't, but I heard it was excellent.
Yeah, it was really, it's pretty interesting how, some guys that had to experience that, like go back in that area and maybe see it in a little bit different ways. But obviously he was pretty emotional, and it wasn't, it sounded like it was a little painful, brought up probably some bad memories for him, and other guys, maybe it did too. Maybe they just didn't express it as much, but it was if you haven't listened to it, I'd go listen to it. It is pretty interesting, and he got pretty passionate about talking about being back in that ballpark in Alabama. You can imagine what that was like back in the 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
It was probably
sure.
the friendliest place. And so, yeah, he got emotional on it, but I thought I went back and watched it a few times. So if you haven't seen it yet, anybody who hasn't seen it, I would just go back and check it out. It's like, if you want to know what the experience was like, I think unfiltered, it's a good one to listen to. The last thing about Rickwood, I love the uniforms. I love that they wore. Beats the shit out of any City Connect uniform I had seen.
I was just going to say that
They were awesome.
The vintage, and it's not just those. Anytime that you see a team play in a legitimately designed throwback uniform, they inevitably look better. I mean, I'm not asking them to play in wool uniforms, but anytime that you see a team go ahead and go with the styling of some of those classic 30s, 40s, 50s uniforms, the players look spectacular.
Oh, they do. There's nothing I like more than that 1940s Cardinals jersey. And they do. They wear those throwbacks every so often. I tell you, and I like some of the things they've done with the new refresh jersey. I'm not talking about the Nike iteration. I'm talking about just when they went with the home kind of the home cream color with the red piping on it for Saturday games. I think that was a nice little touch, and it was kind of like meet in the middle, a little bit of modern era with a nod to the past. But that a 1940s Cardinals jersey that they do break out every so often it's an amazing one. It's probably one I should have, and I haven't gotten it yet, but that's a cool one. But yes, what they did for this game in Rickwood, I thought those uniforms were great, and I think that it's like that across the board. I feel bad for teams like Arizona, who their throwback uniform is, 1998, and it sucked.
So, obviously, we would be remiss if we didn't acknowledge part of the reason the throwback, anything like that, right, immediately gets more eyes on it. The Field of Dreams game immediately gets more eyes, right? Anytime that you do something that's a little bit out of the ordinary, people pay a little bit more attention. But this year, obviously, the unfortunate coincidence of Willie Mays' death literally the day before brought a lot of eyes on it. And honestly, for me, another just drove the point home again of the misapplication and the foolishness of our reliance on statistical numbers. And the thing that drove me nuts about it, because as soon as I heard about it, I immediately went and found it, is in an attempt to try to compare players across eras, right? They've come up with all kinds of statistics, and I think probably the one that they rely on most is WRC plus, right? Because that controls for ballpark effects, and it controls for the league environment and everything, right? And so 100 is an average player in an average ballpark in that era. And here's where it drove me nuts. Willie Mays had a career WRC plus of 154. Shohei Ohtani has a career WRC plus because we're being told he's definitely the greatest baseball player now of this era. And possibly, I've seen it, possibly the greatest baseball player we've ever seen. You cannot tell me that Willie Mays is only 5% better than Shohei Ohtani. You're talking about a guy who literally did it all, who led the league in homers multiple times, who led the league in stolen bases multiple times, who was, I think I saw a 24-time All-Star.
Yes. Yeah.
And you're going to tell me
how many gold gloves on
12? I think it was 12 gold gloves. And I think part of the reason why it's
yep.
only 12 is because they hadn't started the gold glove yet at the beginning of his career.
They did well. And
You can't go across eras and tell me that Shohei Ohtani is anywhere near equivalent to Willie Mays. But when everything has to be overanalyzed and broken down into a number, that's inevitably what you come to. And I just don't buy it.
It doesn't pass the sniff test because he spent a lot of years in the Negro leagues where they didn't have any of those accolades. And so obviously Golden Glove wasn't invented at the time, but the guy's play would have garnered him more Gold Gloves. So the fact that he was a 24-time All-Star says that you won't see that again with anybody.
Well, yeah, I find that stuff a little silly too. But of course, if baseball has any chance at all to bring Shohei Ohtani's name into
they're going to
a conversation, they're gonna look for any way they can to do it. And it's a shame that they put him out there. Look, at the end of Ohtani's career, if you want to start comparing him to everybody else, I'm all for that, right? Let's see how he ends up. But he's got a lifetime batting average of 274 going into this year. So let's stop that nonsense. I mean, Willie Mays was one of the absolutely true 5-tool players, right? And I'm not saying Ohtani can't be, but he's not because he's a DH. So he's not a 5-tool player right now.
And he doesn't stay healthy.
2. No, it's another thing too. And that stuff, I'm with you, Pete. That stuff drives me crazy. But again, it's baseball taking the opportunity to somehow put Shohei Ohtani in there as the great, at the end of his career, he's going to be the greatest player of all time. Blah, blah, blah. Here we go again. We've heard it before.
Yep.
Let's just see how the numbers stack up at the end. I think we're all going to find that, nope. Yeah, he might be in the top 20, top 10. That's fine. That's fair. But let's not start putting his picture of him next to Willie Mays or anybody else right now.
Did we lose him?
We did. We did lose him. So I guess we have to go. I was wondering if it was my Wi-Fi all the way out here that was struggling to keep up, but I actually think it was his. So I don't know. Yeah, Elliott, if you guys haven't, I think maybe you can go on MLB.tv and I think you can watch replays of that game by now. You should be able to.
Yeah, I was planning on pulling it up sometime this afternoon. So
I meant to hit close on a tab, and instead I hit quit. So
oh, nice. We're still broadcasting.
So this was
yes,
user
I know. That's
error.
the good thing about this, right? The stream is persistent, even if I'm not. Ron, I think that's a great point, and we're going to put a pin in the WRC plus thing because we're going to come back to that in a minute. But sticking with Rickwood, of course, because he absolutely had to make it about himself, and I'm sure you know where I'm going with this one. But Barry Bonds had to make it about Barry Bonds.
God, he is such a douche. I did see this comment.
I know you saw it, Ron, because you actually watched it. Oh, you didn't, but you've heard about it, right?
I might have missed this part. No, I haven't even heard about it.
I'm not sure if it was, I think it was pregame, wasn't it, Elliott? I don't know. It doesn't matter. It was either pre or post game, but anyway, they were asking, they had Barry Bonds up there on the dais with the other broadcasters. And it must have been pregame, but I think it was so Alex Rodriguez actually had a good moment when he asked Reggie Jackson about having played. And I don't remember who threw the question to him, but they asked Barry Bonds if he had faced Satchel Paige.
Well, there's a story before that
please, Elliott, go.
That they were talking to him about where he actually, there was a story, and I can't remember. It was Willie Mays had a story about facing Satchel Paige, and he was young. He was maybe a rookie or year 2 or something like that.
Yeah.
And Satchel Paige, so Willie Mays comes up, he gets a hit his first time up against
on like a curveball or something. Right?
Yeah, on a curveball. So then his next he told somebody on the team, hey, let me know when this kid gets up to bat again. So he comes up to bat and Satchel Paige goes, hey kid, I'm throwing you fastballs every pitch. And Willie Mays went up there and Satchel Paige just blew every pitch by him, knowing that they were going to come in as fastballs. And he's like, he told me what was coming and I couldn't handle it. And I grabbed bench.
Well, it gets even better because in a biography of Willie Mays, and I think I retweeted it on our X account, Willie Mays, the way that he describes it, he said, Satchel came up, he threw 2 fastballs by me. I swung and missed both of them. And then the third one came and he started walking off the mound and said, grab some bench, kid, while the pitch was still in the air. So then they throw it to Barry Bonds and they say, Barry, how would you have done against Satchel Paige? And he says, me, gone. Thinks that he would have hit a home run off Satchel Paige.
Yeah.
Great. Good job.
Barry, I don't think it was like those kids in 2003 that kept throwing them right down the heart of the plate at you.
Right.
Hoping to be part of the record book.
Yep. I would have loved to have seen Barry Bonds dig in against Bob Gibson. First pitch would have been in his backside, and the second one would have been at his head. Yeah. With all that armor and everything, it would have been. You know that Bob Gibson would have looked at him and said, "Oh, you're going to protect yourself like that? Watch this. This is going to hurt, kid."
Yeah.
We'll put one there was a story McCarver was telling about Bob Gibson and Willie Mays. I think they went to Willie Mays' home when it must have been out on a West Coast trip, but they went to Willie Mays' home and he didn't recognize Bob Gibson because he had glasses on. And I can't mimic his voice. He was real high pitched, but McCarver did a pretty good job doing it. That once Mays realized that was Gibson, he was like, "You throw that hard and you wear glasses? So you're going to kill somebody." Yeah. That would have been, that was one, Bob lived a pretty good life, but that's another one felt like it, went a little bit too soon. I believe it was cancer that took him out. But it would have been nice to have him around just a little bit longer for some more interviews and stories. There's nothing better than when, and this was a long time ago, Pete. It's actually a game you and I think we're driving back from in St. Louis. I think we watched. Did we go to see the? Maybe we did. Did we see the Yankees and Cardinals? You bought me a package that one year. I think as a.
I don't think I went with you to that game, but you're right. I did get you that package.
You did, and it was Joe Torre and the Yankees visiting St. Louis, and afterwards they all went to Mike Shannon's restaurant. It was Joe Torre. I don't know if McCarver was with them or not, but it was Bob Gibson. I think Red was with them, Shane Dienst, and they were the stories they were telling were hilarious. Like I just hearing those four guys, three of them are gone now, but that was the best 2-hour trip I've ever taken back from St. Louis to Bloomington, and I wish I could find an audio recording of that. I should probably hit Tom Ackerman up, who I think we've talked to before. I've talked to a few times. See if they can get an audio clip of that. It was 2005 Yankees Cardinals. It was a post game, and it was he used to do a post game show at his restaurant. So those guys are sitting around a table just drinking beers and telling stories. It was awesome. I wish they would have kept doing stuff like that. But
Ron, now that you mention it, and I think I used to have a picture of it, but I don't anymore. I think we did go to that game together because I think I took a picture of. I think I used to have a picture of Derek Jeter maybe on the field. So I think we. Well,
Randy Johnson pitched that game.
Okay, now I remember this. Yeah, we did go to that game together.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks for the reminder.
Man, that was almost 20 years ago, Pete.
It was. It's been a while.
Holy shit. Yeah, it has been.
All right.
Okay.
So I promised this. I teased it. I told you guys to prepare for this. Let's hear them. Your crazy trade ideas. The Cardinals continue to tread water at 500. Who knows what the Cubs are? They've been terrible for the last 6 weeks, and yet they're only I think a game and a half or 2.5 games out of the last wild card spot. So technically they're still in. So don't give me the boring ones. Don't give me the easy ones. Right? Of trade the Cubs top 2 prospects for whomever. Give me your crazy, it'll be unpopular with the fan base trade ideas because I have mine. So let's hear it.
All right, you want me to go?
Yeah, go, Ron.
Yeah. All right, so crazy idea, and this will inflame many, and I don't care. I think they should. I think the Cardinals. It's been a little bit of a reverse problem from last year. Like the pitching staff has actually held its own this year, and it's been the offense. It's been really inconsistent. It's been really the two of their more important guys haven't done much. 3 if you count Gorman. So Goldie's had an off year. Arenado's I think he's turned it around a little bit, but still probably disappointing results. And then Nolan Gorman has been, Jesus, talk about up and down, a streaky player. I haven't seen a better example than Nolan Gorman. But that's beside the point. I think they have enough offense there that they can get by. And you got to think that a player like Goldschmidt and Arenado are going to figure it out or be able to figure it out before this year is over. So I'm not going to suggest anything crazy like trading either of those two right now. If the Cardinals were 10, 15 games under 500, guys, I'd be all about it. I'd be like, okay, now's the time. You've done this 2 years in a row where you've absolutely sucked. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. You got to start offloading big names. But I'm not there. What I am there on is finding another starter, which I do believe they'll try to do. But I'm going to throw one out there that I think will piss everybody off, and I think they should pluck Trevor Bauer from the Mexican League and just put him in the rotation. And everybody's going to hate that, and everybody's going to get on their, clutch their pearls and stand up on their soapbox and pretend that they're morally better than me for suggesting that. They're morally better than Trevor Bauer because girls are watching them. And if I holler against Trevor Bauer, then all the women out there will go, oh, he's a nice guy because he's hollering about Trevor Bauer. I don't believe any of you. We went over it on here, right? The guy has never been charged with anything. So think of him what you want. I think he can still pitch in the major leagues. I don't even think there's a doubt about it. So if you want a fifth starter, take him from Mexico, put him in the rotation. And if nothing else, because I'm not that high on baseball right now, I just want to unmute everybody on Twitter if that were to happen, and just to hear them, just to watch it, just to watch people just melt and freak out. And, why not? It's an election year, the worst election year we've ever had in 2024. Half the country hates the other half. Why not just put Trevor Bauer back in Major League Baseball and just let's throw some kerosene on this fire, right? How about that? There's my idea.
I'm clipping a picture of Ron right now. I'm going to drop it into that meme of the little girl sitting in front of the house on fire, and it's going to be captioned with, the Cardinals should sign Trevor Bauer.
Yes, 100%.
Go for it, man.
Beautiful. No, I like it.
Honestly, I'll even take a nice still for you if you want. I can
honestly,
go like this.
There is perfect. Thank you. I got it. Honestly, I can't think of many.
Does it need to be the other hand? Hold on.
No, it'll be fine. It'll be fine.
Okay.
There's not a baseball team in the majors right now that would not be improved by adding Trevor Bauer to their rotation.
Even if they added him to the bullpen, even if they've got a good starting rotation, adding him to the bullpen, he would be super helpful. Guess who needs bullpen help? Pete.
Everybody.
Yeah. Guess who's got one of the worst bullpens in baseball?
Hey, by the numbers, they've improved in the last couple of weeks, other than, closing games.
They have like the second if these games were only 7 innings, the Cubs would be 15 games above 500, but they're not because because the bullpen fucking implodes with spectacular fashion every other game. Like, it is maddening. Like, I have watched less baseball this May/June than I probably have in the last 10 years, because it's just like I see the score and I'm like, okay, we're going into 7th. All right, I'm gonna look back in about an hour and it's gonna be the opposite.
And they'll have blown it.
Yeah. I mean,
all right, Elliott. So fix it.
It's maddening.
Fix it. Let's hear your.
You don't even need to get rid of anybody. Just go get Trevor Bauer and put him in the bullpen.
So let's hear it. Let's hear your crazy baseball move. It doesn't have to be a trade, obviously, but let's hear your crazy, outrageous move for the Cubs.
I really don't have one. I just go get bullpen help. I don't give a shit who it is. It's gonna be better than what we currently have. I mean. I know there's been a lot of injuries, and I know our top 3 bullpen arms are gonna be back pretty soon. It's just fucking maddening right now watching them work. I mean, I don't think you have to give away any of your top 100 prospects for bullpen arms, because bullpen arms they don't demand that kind of trade unless you're getting somebody shut down. But they're probably on a team that's not going to be selling. So sorry to kind of be not fun on this one, but.
Well, I'll make it fun. I'll make it a little bit fun, I think, for Cardinals fans. So as you guys know, and I just thought of this while we were sitting here, I wasn't going to go. The reason I didn't go to this name before is because he's injured right now, and I don't know if the timetable is really known when he's going to be back. But you got to think that there's a team out there that, is it time for the Angels to part with Mike Trout? Is it time?
Yeah.
Right. You can't if you gave that guy truth serum, he's going to be like, get me the hell out of here. He has to be that way. I know Ron Washington's a good guy, but I mean, he's got to want to try something else. And you got to think there's a team out there right now. Maybe they're floating around 500. Yeah, they might make a playoff, but they might just miss it. But they're not quite ready yet. So they don't need Mike Trout right now. They might not need him right now, but can you buy low on him right now, as low as you possibly can for a guy named Mike Trout? Is it a time where you can buy him at a reasonable price? Yeah, you're going to have to part with something, but you won't have to part with what you would if he was in that. If he was in the lineup every day right now, producing like we know he can. Yeah. Is this a good time for it right now? So yeah, I'm looking at the Cardinals and their never-ending carousel of outfield. They haven't been able to figure out since 2017. It's been 7 years now. If I can't figure out something in my job in 7 years, I'm probably fired 3 years into it, and I'm not getting to that 7th year. So, hey, is it something like all right, you know what? They've survived without a lot. They're what they thought was going to be their outfield this year, primarily. They haven't had them. And so what's it hurt, right? Can you make a deal for a guy like that? Yeah, he might be back next year. And there, you got your center fielder. There's no questions anymore who's playing out there, or left field. But, I know he's going to be a year older and he's had some injuries, so maybe he's a right fielder now. But, like, in that solves one of your never-ending outfield problems. And I don't know what you would really have to give up right now for him. I'm not saying nothing, because it's going to be significant, but it's not going to be like what you would have to give up for Juan Soto last year, or what the Yankees had to give up in the offseason. It's got price certainly has to be a little bit under that, I believe. But anyway, crazy thought.
I got to tell you, I know we talked about this earlier in the year. I can't think of a team, just based on their history and everything, a team that would be a better fit than Mike Trout. I just think he would land in St. Louis and he would immediately fall in love. And obviously the city would fall in love with him, and it would be a match made in heaven. And it makes me sick to think about the possibility.
I just kind of threw up in my mouth a little bit.
No, but I agree. But I think it's the track record of doing that, right, guys? I mean, when you get you trade a West Coast guy, Mark McGwire, who probably had no intentions whatsoever to plant his stake down anywhere in the Midwest, but they're able to do it once they got him there. Same thing with Jim Edmonds. I know he's you guys' favorite, but it was the same story there. A guy that probably had grew up on the West Coast, played for a West Coast team, and all of a sudden gets traded to the middle of the country, where maybe it's boring, maybe it's not, those guys choose to make a home there. Or at least in McGuire's case, the rest of his Major League Baseball career, that was his home. Jim Edmonds has stayed there, ever since, right? So, yeah, they do have a track record, Pete, and that's why. And I think they have the need. I don't know what the price would be, but it wouldn't be what it would have been 2 years ago or a year ago. So maybe now's the time. But is that a Johnny Moe thing? No. But maybe that's why you bring Walt Jocketty back in, pull off some bullshit like that. Maybe you can do it.
Well, hey, Johnny Moe got Arenado and Goldschmidt. It hasn't worked out exactly how you had hoped, but
right.
He not only brought them in, but he actually managed to fleece both teams in doing so. So you would imagine that maybe he'd be able to get Trout and Joe Adele in a package deal for, I don't know, pick your Cardinal, but Nolan Gorman and Dylan Carlson. Right, I think that you guys would make that deal.
We got to look for the next Kent Bottenfield in the Cardinal system. That's who they got for Edmonds. Pretty insane. Adam Kennedy too, right? We got to find the next Adam Kennedy and Kent Bottenfield if we want to go grab Trout.
Well, for my crazy idea, I actually, Ron, you give me the opportunity to preface it a little bit. And Elliott, I don't know if you saw Arizona Phil's post yesterday, specifically about trades and trading prospects and everything, but he traced the Cubs' current state. He went all the way back to 2016, which was, I think, maybe our first emergency podcast that we ever did on the show, when the Cubs traded for Jose Quintana. And he went all the way back to 2016 and talked about the fallout of that. And he laid out that it was pretty interesting. He said, I don't know that necessarily that Theo Epstein knew that he was only going to do 10 years with the Cubs and then he was going to be out. But that deal ultimately laid the groundwork for him leaving, because he offered up the Cubs' number one position prospect and their number one pitching prospect in order to get Jose Quintana. Now, he didn't know how things were going to turn out, but that was the turning point for the Cubs organization, because it committed to the core that the Cubs had, rather than looking to extend their window, right? And to build what he had described when he first started with the Cubs as sustained success. It actually ended that, because he committed to the core and had to double down on the guys who already existed because they no longer had their top pitching and top hitting prospects. And obviously, Eloy Jimenez has not set the baseball world on fire, and Dylan Cease has been up and down. But I don't know that since 2016, up until the last couple of years, I don't know that the Cubs have brought up a hitter or a pitcher who compares to either of those two. So obviously that's a mess. And that's to preface this by saying that obviously the Cubs need to make a move, and they're clearly not set up to sell. But I think it would be a mistake, as some people are now arguing, for the Cubs to go down that exact same route and to rent a player and give away a couple of their top prospects. That if they're going to trade these prospects, a lot of people, including the Cubs organization, clearly are high on, then you better get something significant back that you're going to have for a while and not have a player who you're only going to have for a couple of years, and lose that value. So my crazy trade idea that I know is going to drive most Cubs fans nuts is to trade the career 113 plus OPS player who by the numbers is apparently 13% better than the average player, even though he carries a lifetime batting average of 248. But let's strike while the iron is hot, while he is hitting well and while he has his 2 gold gloves. And we're going to send Mr. Connect, brought to you by Sloan and Parse Rum. And we're going to partner him with a player who I like, but is not helping the Cubs in the way that he's utilized, and who you also can strike while the iron's hot because he also has a gold glove. It's time to call an end to the Nico Hoerner era. You partner Happ and Hoerner, and you get something back in order to find that big bat that the Cubs don't have, because the Cubs have a lot of very good players, but they don't have a superstar, and they need a superstar in the middle of that lineup to drive in some runs. Ian Happ ain't that guy. He's never gonna be that guy. You can't count on him. He's hot and cold. He is the definition of a streaky player, and he's not going to show up for a month out of the year. At some point, even in his best season, he has not shown up for a month. So ship him out, get somebody else. You have plenty of outfielders in the minor league system. Let's give them some run. Let's figure out what we've got there. The results can't be any worse than what you currently have now. And in order to get a little something extra back, send Nico Hoerner. I love him. I think he would have been a great player 20 years ago when there was a need for a contact guy with speed and who had a glove at the top of your lineup. But the Cubs clearly aren't going to put him at the top of their lineup. There's no interest in that. And we're going to get into this in a second. Baseball lineups no longer make sense to me. But Nico Hoerner doesn't have a proper place in the Cubs lineup. I don't even know if he has a proper place in the modern major league lineup, but put him together and either get a stud ace or a stud hitter back. You don't have to hit the reset button, but you do need to retool this lineup, and what they have right now isn't doing it. So come at me, Cubs fans, but it's time for Ian and Nico to say goodbye. The compound can take its show on the road. 2/3 of, or if you go back to the original composition, half of the Compound podcast is already not in Chicago. Let's just make it 100% no longer a Cubs podcast, and close the book on that era, because we've gotten nothing out of it.
Whoa. I think Nico could be a nice little player on a team that already has some of those components there, right? Like, he's not the guy you want to count on to be a core in the middle, like somewhere like a 3-4-5, traditional 3-4-5 guy. Like, he's not going to be that, but a nice little player to plug in. That's a role player, and every team needs them. They're not going to be all stars, but they're going to be solid players that are going to help the machine run, to help the wheels continue to turn. You need those guys. I think Nico would be great. Just you find the right fit for him. I don't know who that target team would be. But I see a lot of upside. Not upside there. I see a good fit, but probably a lot more organizations than I probably would have. There's Ian Happ. I would love to not see Ian Happ bat in the 9th inning every time St. Louis plays them. He kills them for some reason. And if he played the Cardinals 162 games a year, Pete, you wouldn't even be saying this.
If he played the Cardinals 162 games a year in Cincinnati or Pittsburgh, you're right. I wouldn't.
Well, and then they would have been talking about him at the Rickwood game next to Willie Mays instead of Shohei.
That's right. Elliott, I know you love Nico.
I do. Obviously, some of his flaws have shown through this year, more than the previous years, especially with the bat. Maybe the Connor Shaw time is now.
Matt Shaw.
Yeah, I mean it's tough, but I think you've got a player down there that you're not going to get any less offense. You're definitely going to get a glove that's just as good to pair up with Dansby Swanson because we know he's not going anywhere. The real hard pill to swallow is we know we had a monster bet that could play a decent left field before that we just gave away, who has been a great player since he left.
Although maybe part of the reason why he's been a great player is because he left.
He's right. And that's totally plausible. But man, Pete, as much as I would hate it, if that could bring in a superstar bat, I'm freaking signing off. I'm good.
And you may have to give away one of those top 10 prospects in the system in order to sweeten the pot, right? So it's a 3-player deal for one big name. But at least it's only one prospect. It's not 2 or 3 or 4.
Right. You're giving away 2 major league ready guys and then a prospect who, yes, you may like, but prospects don't always pan out.
Right.
And yeah, that would be tough, but
yep.
I'd be okay with it.
And this is an imperfect roster, right? We kind of knew it going in, but we didn't know it was going to be this bad. This is a roster that is in many ways is unplayable, right? Unless you make Christopher Morel your full-time DH, he's miscast defensively, and he's been up and down 100%. At third base, but I don't think his long-term position is third base. I think his long-term position is the DH. Yeah. And you can't move him to second base, which is his natural position because Nico Horner's there. And who knows, if you trade Nico away, maybe you move Morel to second base where he's comfortable and you bring Matt Shaw up to play third and see what you've got there. Maybe fluff Morel's value a little, and then you trade him away if you prove that he's playable at second.
And then maybe your trade is for that left outfielder,
right? Well, or maybe you give Alexander Canario an actual opportunity to play baseball, right? Unless you are so convinced that he's not that guy, in which case package him with Nico and Ian.
And you brought in a coach who is notoriously good with young ball players.
Yeah.
That gets them to outperform. And maybe that's where your change needs to happen, is by starting to get rid of some of these legacy guys that everybody is in love with and do the same thing that you kind of did back in 2019, where you traded away Anthony Rizzo and Chris Bryant and Javi Baez, and use that to either restock a couple of guys, but bring in a superstar.
Yep. So I wasn't planning on us talking about this one, but it came up. Guys, baseball lineups no longer make sense to me. When I fell in love with the game, the understanding that I had was that your leadoff hitter is a guy who, gets on base a lot and then causes chaos on the base pads, by distracting the pitcher and running all over the place. Like, Pete Crow Armstrong. And then after that, you had a high contact guy who also had some speed, but who could put the ball in play, and could put that leadoff hitter in a position to score a run if he wasn't able to drive him in himself, like Nico Horner. And then your best hitter on the team, your best all-around hitter on the team was your third hitter. And so you slotted him in there because he had a high batting average and he also had some power, and that was the guy who was going to keep things going. And then your fourth hitter was your biggest power hitter. Your fifth hitter was a guy who was a big power hitter but had a little bit more swing and miss. And then 6, 7, 8 kind of slotted in the way that they did. That's not how they approach constructing lineups anymore.
No.
Now, supposedly, you're supposed to put your best hitter in the second position so that you can get him as many bats as possible. And then 3, 4, 5. And then you wonder why guys like Seiya Suzuki, who's supposedly the Cubs' best hitter, doesn't have all the RBIs that you would expect because, he's just not hitting with runners in scoring position when he's not coming up with runners in scoring position. Am I wrong? Has the game passed me by? I don't understand lineups anymore, guys.
No, they've abandoned that shit a long time ago, right? When you see, Schwarber leading off, and I think I don't know what some power hitter was leading off last week too. I don't know if it was like a Judge or somebody like that, but
I think it was Judge.
Yeah, I don't. Again, it gets into, I think, overthinking, overanalyzing things. That just like you hear, well, your most productive hitter needs to be your number 2 hitter. I disagree with that slightly because I think you should have a good hitter as a number 2, maybe a little bit more power than.
I always thought your most productive hitter should be hitting 3.
That's kind of how I grew up playing. That's how our lineups were always done, and that's what baseball was like 15 years ago. But
I mean, what makes them the most productive hitter is their ability to put the ball in play when there are people on the bases.
Right.
But if there's nobody on base, it kind of is counterproductive. So now he's on base, and now you've got a guy who's not as productive, who can't drive him in because he's not a good hitter.
Yeah. I don't know. It's gotten a little bit, it's insane, man. And so I can't wait for some team out there at some point in time to say, you know what, this is stupid. Like everybody, you guys go try your experimentation, game over game, week over week. We're going to have, like you said it right, Pete, I'm going to have a high on base guy with some good speed, can make contact. He's going to be my leadoff guy. I'm going to have somebody kind of like him, but maybe a little bit more pop. Maybe one left, maybe it's a right-left combination, but that's going to be my number 2 hitter. And I'm going to have the guy who hits for a pretty good average, have some pop, and can knock those guys in when they get on. And then my cleanup hitters is going to be just that, right? If, 2 outs, first inning, one guy happened to make it on base, my cleanup hitter, you know what, swing away, buddy. I can't wait to see a team do that. Just go back to that. That have that Ricky Henderson up top of the lineup instead of trying to make it. That's what would have happened. What happened in this era is somebody would have tried to make Ricky Henderson a cleanup hitter or a number 3 hitter instead of just putting him in leadoff where he excelled and he did his best. Some jackass out there sitting up in an office would have said, we can use his bat, his tendencies and everything. Boy, they really profile well. I think he could do well at in the 3-hole or the 4-hole. Somebody would have done that to a player like Ricky Henderson by now. So I can't wait to see a team that says this is dumb. Baseball did this for 100 years in this way, and something about it worked. And hey, baseball's trying to get smarter. But it looks like it might be maybe getting dumber. I don't know. I don't knock anybody for trying to be smarter or trying to have more information.
I feel like they just try to get too cute. They get too cute.
Yeah, that's probably a more polite way to say it is I think it's overthinking it, trying to get a one-up on your opponent, which can't blame anybody for doing that really, but I think it's just tinkering around with things too much. There's a way it works, and I'm bored with seeing a guy like Schwarber lead off when I would just put his ass at number 4 or 5.
Yeah,
I mean, they're the Phillies. They have the best record in the National League, so I might not know what the hell I'm talking about because they got some pretty good bats in that lineup. Maybe an awful example. But yeah, I'm kind of with you, Pete. They don't. I mean, they make sense to me when they're explained. Like if somebody threw out the numbers, like he can do well, like batting second or batting first or batting ninth, because for these reasons, I'm sure you can lay out an argument for all of that. And it might come down to the fact that I just don't like it because I'm used to this way. I just want to see one team go back to that. Just one team, and just kick the snot out of everybody else. That would be great because we'd all be rooting for that team, no matter what city or shirt they had. I don't care if the Brewers did it. If the Brewers are the ones that come out and put a traditional lineup out there and they're kicking everybody's ass, we're all going to be rooting for the Brewers in the playoffs.
All right, so I don't disagree, Dustin. The game has passed all of us by. And actually, Dustin, to get to your point, and obviously, if you guys aren't looking at it, the Duke has joined the chat on YouTube. I'm going to throw some numbers at you guys, and you tell me who you would rather watch play. Their OPS plus numbers are very close. One of them has an OPS plus, or had an OPS plus of 143. Okay. And I'm just going to give you the slash lines and the headline numbers. He hit 284 with a 369 on base percentage, 517 slug, 29 home runs, 112 RBIs, and stole 30 bases. Okay. The other one had a 351 batting average, had 213 hits, only 5 home runs and only 71 RBIs, but had 21 doubles, 10 triples, stole 33 bases, and only struck out 23 times. So 351, a 410 on base percentage, and a 444 slug. Which one would you rather see?
Which one would I rather see where? Leadoff?
Which one would you have rather watched play? I should put it that way.
Oh, let me see. Me personally, I'd rather see the guy that puts the ball in play.
Yeah, option B.
So according to
Who's
the
that?
stats, according to the advanced statistics, Kyle Tucker's 2023 season is, for all intents and purposes, almost identical to Tony Gwynn's 1984 season, when Tony Gwynn hit 351 and had 213 hits. Sorry, guys. I'd much rather watch Tony Gwynn play baseball than I would Kyle Tucker.
Was Tony Gwynn the first guy?
No, Tony Gwynn was the second guy with the 351 batting average and 213 hits.
Yeah. Yep. No, I'd rather see action in the game. I don't have to see
10 triples. 10 triples. Nobody hits 10 triples anymore.
No. And Tony Gwynn, he wasn't like the fleetest of foot or the most fit. I mean, he probably wasn't 84. 84, he's probably a little more slender.
Yeah, he was.
By the end of his playing days, it might have been a little challenging to get your arms around him. But I mean, he was a good athlete. He was. I think he was a good basketball player too.
He still hit the shit out of the ball.
Yeah.
He was an athlete.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he was a good athlete. 100%, man. I want to see somebody puts the ball in play, and they can hit for power if they want to. But he chose to go where the pitch went. He chose to go with what the pitcher gave him more often than not. And I wish we had a whole absurd stats about Tony Gwynn, about how few times he struck out.
That year he struck out 23 times.
Yeah.
23 times.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like they put up something like some of these players like lifetime strikeouts, and players today are exceeding that in 1 year.
Yeah. Tony Gwynn in that season. Okay, so as I said, he had 213 hits that season. He also had 59 walks against 23 strikeouts. That's insane. You will never see that again.
Nope. I mean, we'll be dead by the time they figure it out and turn baseball around, but they got to start at the lowest levels and rebuild it. And we'll all be gone, boys. I'll be in an urn.
You're not the only one.
Because I earned it.
That's right. Hey, so we're already up over an hour and we haven't even gotten to it. And so we can't just go away without it. It's time for Ron Soccer Minute. So Ron, I mean, you were kind of expecting this. I could tell in the previous episode, but man, to give up a hat trick, that's a rough look, man.
It's a rough look at home. Colorado Rapids are a good team. That's not the loss that hurts, although it sucks. They haven't scored a game in 2 games. They haven't scored a goal in 2 games now. I think 3. I'll correct myself. They have not scored a goal in 3 games.
They haven't scored a goal since Miami, have they?
No.
They left it all out on the pitch.
They've left everything. They left it all in Fort Lauderdale. So it's been an interesting week. But I'll just go to the games real quick, right? So the ones that hurt are the Portland Timbers. That's a game you got to win at home. That was a scoreless draw sucks, man. That game on Saturday, losing to the Colorado Rapids, which I expect to do. Colorado's got a really good team this year. But Portland was missing several players. One was sitting out on a yellow card accumulation. The other guys are, often international player loans and injuries. So they had a depleted Portland team. They couldn't play anything at home. And that was a frustrating one to watch. Saturday was Wednesday. They played the Rapids on Wednesday. I'm glad I didn't go to that game because I was ticketed to go to Missouri for other purposes, but I was going to try to make that one. I'm glad I didn't. So yeah, it's been a rough go. But what the interesting thing is, they've made it now that this transfer window is open. This is all new to me, guys. This is like, it's got some similarities to when we approach trade deadline, but the MLS rules are quirky, man. It's going to take me 3 or 4 years to get used to these. But so the transfer window is open now, and they have made a couple deals. And there's a rumored third, Marcel Hartl. He's also a Bundesliga guy. That rumor there that's another acquisition of St. Louis, and it would make sense because they've traded a couple players away, transferred. Sorry, I'll get the terms down here in a couple years. But they transferred AZ Jackson, and the only good news there's good and bad about transferring Jackson, right? Young players, only 22. He's on the U.S. men's national team, but he would make you crazy watching him play. Just a lot of energy. He's excited. He's like taking an untrained dog to the dog park, where they're all over the place, humping everybody's leg, pissing on stuff, eating other food.
Nice.
I mean, he was like that on the pitch, right? He's just nuts. And I've never seen a player dribble into stationary defenders more often. And he was paper people. As soon as somebody touched him, he's down on the ground. So they've and the hard part about losing him, though, is that my wife gets Tourette's every time he's on the pitch, and she just goes crazy. And expletives every time he touches the ball. So there's good and bad there. I'm going to miss that part of it. But I think that's a player that maybe he could, in St. Louis's system of chaos and high press, maybe he will be better served in something that's a little bit more structured and a little bit better role for him. So he's gone. They've Nicholas Dewar, who an international player that they transferred to a team in Belgium, clearing up an international spot probably for this Hartel. Who's going to join them too. So they have reinforcements coming, but the shitty thing about MLS is they're not able to until the transfer window is open, and the earliest they're eligible to play is July 18th. So the next game they have is on July 20th. So you still have to go a good month with what you have. And right now, with St. Louis's injuries they've had, we talk about this. So Thomas Ostrak, Rasmus Alm, and a devastating injury to Celio Pompeo. Guys, I wouldn't even go on YouTube and watch this injury. Celio Pompeo has been one of their starting right wing, left wing. He's played a little bit of both. Not a lot of goals this year, but he keeps that offense going. He's a threat, right? And he draws defenders to him to kind of clear the box so he can try to service it in there. So Celio's been kind of a homegrown kid. He played City 2, and now he's secured a permanent starting role with City this year. But he went down with a dislocated ankle, broken fibia. It was, guys, I'm telling you guys, we were sitting here and all of us made the same collective groan when they showed the replay on this. His leg just went in the wrong direction, and he was laying there, just the ankle flopping around. You're like, oh shit, this is bad. And so that was what happened. But this rival, looking at the replay rivals, Joe Theismann injury or Alex Smith. It was awful, right? But the prognosis is, it should be a recovery depending on soft tissue. So they're putting a 9-month timetable to when he can come back to competitive play. So he's gone for the year. So St. Louis just been devastated by injury. They've transferred some players out because the window's open now. And so they've dipped down into City 2. They've got 4 City 2 players right now playing with it. It's basically like you guys going down to Iowa and replacing your entire infield.
Might not be a bad idea.
Or bullpen.
But it's going to be a rough go, and I think they're likely to probably miss the playoffs this year. But they have these other players that are going to come in, so I look for how they finish the year. Maybe they can catch up and capture that 8th, 9th spot, and they can eat their way in. If not, I'm curious to see how these new guys fit into the system and maybe build some excitement up for 2025. But it's been a rough go of it. I haven't seen them win a game since we were there against Chicago. It's either been draw or loss, and it's been pretty ugly. But I'll take it as it comes. It's still, to me, it's still a more edge of the seat, exciting thing to watch than baseball has been. So I haven't changed my stance. I'm still wearing my colors.
Now, I know they've got a game today, but isn't there a break coming up? Or
yeah, it's the Leagues Cup is coming up, and so there'll be probably a 3 or 4 week window here coming up in July, Augustish, where there won't be much MLS action. It happened last year too, and that was the turning point in St. Louis last year, where they were phenomenal, even losing 2 of their best players for extended periods of time. They were still most points in the league next to Cincinnati going up until that break. Coming out of that break, they were just flat. I think that was a turning point for them. That time off, they came out of the chute after the break really slow, and it carried through the end of the year. It's interesting to see how it happens this year. Is it going to be the same, or are they going to learn from that as a collective group and come out of that break ready to go? But last year, that was a big deal. I'd like to see them compete a little bit harder in the Leagues Cup this year once they have those new players in there. But, I don't know how much time that's going to take these new guys to learn the system. And I don't know the rules. I don't know if those new acquisitions can even train with City, if it's allowed. I don't know. So, yeah, it's been a rough month and a half, but oh well.
Well, maybe this year they'll come out of that Leagues Cup break a little bit more on fire. You'll see the opposite effect.
That's what I'm hoping for.
Of what you saw last year. Elliott, any final thoughts before we call it a week?
No, I just like to see some better baseball. I'd like to see some early moves from the Cubs. They always, and we've seen this, they always tend to wait to the end of the trade deadline to make a move. I don't think they can afford to do that this year if they're serious about being competitive for the remainder of the season. So don't be afraid to make moves in June.
Despite the cost?
Within reason.
You're going to have to pay more if you're making a trade now.
No, that's true. So
Cardinals bring in one Angel and then bring in the Devil right after him. Mike Trout and Trevor Bauer. Get them both.
I don't know. I think you make that Devil
burn.
move first, and then you make the move for Trout.
I don't care what
right.
they're doing in Elliott.
I think you're right. I think that you make the one, you give it 24 hours, and then you announce the Trout trade.
I can imagine like the conditions of a tornado, hot and cold weather coming together. And you're going to have Trevor Bauer that's going to start circling around all these, Cardinals out there on X, just swirling around, pissed off. And then you throw in Mike Trout and then the two conditions, and it's just a tornado of stupid ass Cardinals fans floating around social media. I cannot wait. I hope it happens.
So do I. Even though it'll make Elliott throw up in his mouth, I'd love to see it happen because it seems like the absolute right thing. And honestly, I don't want to see the Brewers win the division this year.
Funnier thing is they make the playoffs, number 2 starter. If that were to happen, the number 2 starter, you're going to have Sonny Gray followed by Trevor Bauer in the playoffs. Mark my words, if they got him. And everybody who's bitching about it, all of a sudden, maybe he wasn't guilty.
Yeah.
You scumbags. All right.
I think that's the perfect opportunity to go out. So if you have enjoyed this week's podcast, don't forget to leave a comment and subscribe. And if you want to help spread the word, please give us a 5-star review. Tell your friends to do the same. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever else you listen to podcasts. We also regularly live stream on Saturday mornings on Rumble, Facebook, YouTube, and X. Be sure to check out the other Fuel Sports Network podcasts, including the Derek King Sports Show, the X-Fan Show, Talking Sports on the Bleachers with Don Glenn, and, of course, At the Park at S, not X, S-T-L. You can find Elliott online at
TOR_Elliott.
And you can find Ron at
TOR_Ron75. And just look for the Cardinals fan here in about a month and a half. It's just going to get ratioed out there. You'll find me.
And of course, you can find Fuel Sports Network on Facebook and at Fuel Sportsnet on X. And you can get in touch with any of us on social media at Team of Rivals Pod. And with that, gentlemen, thanks for jumping on today. Glad we were able to make it happen.
Yeah.
I'll see you next week. We'll see you all next week. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your weekend and an outstanding week.
Bye-bye.
Sports Network.
It's a trap!
This is the